Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday afternoon on the 17th or 16th of February, excuse me. And yes, it's been 1 week since Super Bowl Sunday, so I hope that you have sufficiently recovered. If you're a Chiefs fan, hey, 51 weeks to the next Super Bowl. And if you're an Eagles fan, congratulations, well done. And guess what, guys? Your fans are going to want you to do it all over again. So training camp is going to come sooner rather than later. So just get ready for that. Today is also a great day for NASCAR because it is the official kickoff of NASCAR season with the running of the Daytona 500. And this year, once again, as in 2020, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and the First Lady, Melania, will be attending the Daytona 500. And I'm sure that all of his Florida voters will be absolutely apoplectic about having him back. President Trump loves Florida. He loves NASCAR voters. And he loves to be there. Well, I have a confession to make to you. As you know, I am a devout Catholic. And I don't normally, in the public, of making a public confession. I did make a private confession yesterday when I was with my confessor. But today I have a public confession. And that is, I have what is known as a guilty pleasure. Now, a guilty pleasure is something that you just enjoy a great deal. Kind of like eating Haagen-Dazs Rocky Road when no one else is in the house. And you can just enjoy every scoop to its maximum effect. Or maybe curling up with a good bottle of wine, red or white, your discretion, and curling up with a novel, and maybe the kids are out with their dad on a very extended errand, so you have the whole house to yourself, and you don't care whether it's clean or not. That's a guilty pleasure. Well, I do have a guilty pleasure. And I've been pursuing this guilty pleasure for about 3 years from now, and you probably are not going to guess what it is. Oh, by the way, before we start, this is my new Air Force Academy football jersey that I received. This is the blue digitized camouflage Air Force has gone to. Now, the Navy had a similar design, and in their camouflage, and they were called blueberries. It was a darker blue, but it was digitized, but they ended up getting rid of them. The Marines would never wear other than the official camo digitized, but Air Force has now decided, at least for the football team. But I love it. I love my Air Force Academy, and thank you to Fanatics that I believe I got this from. Okay, so let me announce my guilty pleasure, one and all. You're not going to believe it, but it is Love is Blind. Now, the reason why I love this show so much is that because I'm going to make a connection to something else that we do on a fairly frequent nature. Now, the whole purpose of Love and Blind is for people to get married and hopefully get married once, and that's it. But the whole process that they use in Love and Blind is very much used in another process that we go through in our lives. And unfortunately, nowadays, on a more frequent basis than getting married, and that is to find a job. And as you can see, once again, I mean, companies are shedding people. It is unfortunate because, number one, if you're that person that had lost their job, and we see it not only in the federal government, but in the private sector as well, although the federal government seems to be getting a little bit more attention now, because of what's happening in Washington, D.C. The fact of the matter is that people are losing their jobs both in the public and private sector. And they have two choices, really. One is, well, really three. One is try to find a new job. The second is that they'll stop looking for a job and try to figure something else. Or in some instances, they'll just apply for their Social Security and try to move on with their lives. It's unfortunate because just because you are at a certain point in your life does not make you less productive. That is really the concept of wisdom. I mean, our society, we have to balance constantly this concept of youthfulness, right, versus wisdom. And I think that part of that really came in when John Kennedy was running for president in that now irritating ad that they had, Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy. Well, a lyric was, do you want a man who's young enough to know what he can do, but a young man that's seasoned enough that can get it through and through, or get it done through and through. The whole point is, yes, we want young enough that they can take action, but we want them seasoned enough that they can see it through, that it can be done to completion. And the thing with what Love is Blind is doing is trying to address, in a very real sense, a need that many young people do. I think that many young people, despite their public confession of, they're living their lives and YOLO, you only live once and all this other stuff, at the end of the day, okay, now you may not feel it in your 20s like it was with your parents or your grandparents or your great-grandparents, but at some point, you will come to a point where, you know what, I don't want to go clubbing again next Saturday night. I really just want to stay in. The concept of Netflix and chill has probably produced more children than anything else. But hey, us old people, we used to call it getting your partner in the mood. So, as I was growing up, it was listening to Barry White. Now it's Netflix and chill. Hey, either way, the result isn't the same. When we want to be romantic with our significant other, we just want to do what we want to do. But in Love is Blind, first of all, I want to introduce you to their lovely hosts, as Nick and Vanessa Lachey. They've been doing Love is Blind for 8 seasons out in the United States. The first season was actually done in Atlanta, Georgia, my hometown. And the latest season that just came out on Valentine's Day was done in Minneapolis. And their process is really quite unique. They go through the participants go through an extensive screening process, both men and women. And then it comes down to 15 are chosen that will be on camera when the show starts. Now, the Lacheys just did a very extensive bridal shoot with Bride Magazine. I got this from the online version, and they themselves have been married, I believe, for 13 years themselves. They, according to this, they dated for 5 years, so they've known each other almost for 20 years in some capacity. They share 3 children together. One of them is getting ready to become a teen, and the other 2 are very shortly coming behind them. So that household, if it wasn't exciting before, is going to get real exciting when all 3 of their children hit puberty, full bore. But God bless them. But having a loving mother and father is a great example for their kids to be able to look up to. And I certainly wish them the best of success. So let's go back to what makes their show so interesting. That is this, the pods. Now, the way that the show works is that once the 15 men and women are screened in and will be on camera, what will happen is that the women live on one side. So let's just say, ladies first, they live on the left side of the pods as we are looking on this. There's a separate, like what I call a day room, where they can all socialize together, eat, and then they have a separate quarters for sleeping and showers and that sort of thing. The entire set, I understand, I read in an article, is like 88,000 square feet. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. The men are on the opposite side. Now, the premise is this, is that on the very first day, and they are in the pods for 10 days. On day 1, every single participant will go through a speed dating process. So every female will have 15 dates, just as every male will have 15 dates. The dates are only 10 minutes long. It's very quick. Hi, how are you? Some questions, develop some chemistry. And then through the 10 days, they will go through a sifting process. Now, Again, what makes the show truly unique is that the men and women will never see each other face to face. All the communication is done in the pods and with their voices alone. Okay? Now, this is where it gets, initially it's kind of fun and, frolicky, I guess, for like, because people will say, I've never gone on this many dates in my life. And that very well may be true. And we're talking about people, in their late 20s, early 30s, etc. But the fact of the matter is that you have to develop some sort of chemistry. Now, will everybody be successful in the pods? No, they will not. Now, as Catholics, we have our own version of the pods, and that's simply this. It's the confessional, right? As I alluded to yesterday, when I went to confession yesterday, there was a priest. Now, in my case, I was able to see the priest face to face, but in traditional churches, they still have what is known as a screen where you come in, the priest is there because there's typically a light on his side before you go in, so there's a priest in there, and you walk in, you say the traditional, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been X days since my last confessions. These are the sins I need to confess. Now, you can see, intentionally, he's not looking in the screen. He's looking down. The only thing he wants to hear is your voice and you listing what your sins are. Father, I went and I yelled at my wife. I yelled at my kids. I have issues with anger, except whatever your sins are, that's what you're confessing to. So that's the Catholic version of the pods. But in a very real sense, we also have a secular version of the pods that we go through. And for the rest of this video, I'm going to take you through that analogy. Now, again, this is my own personal expression. I'm not making any endorsements for the show, but I am saying that we do go through a real-life version of Love is Blind in our job searching process as we would do possibly in our love life. So moving forward, all right, mouse, come on. My mouse, unfortunately, is not being very cooperative with me, and there we go. Okay. Look familiar, folks? If you're actively looking for a job, right, you're doing this in a virtual sense, right? For those of you who have connected with me on LinkedIn, and I look forward to that, I myself have got a little crescent on my profile picture, and it's hashtag open to work. Yes, I want to work. I would like to work for you. I'd like to have a job that is meaningful, impactful, etc., compensates me for the skill base that I can bring for you. All of those things. Now, translate that into your romantic life, it would be, I would like to have a partner that values me for what I can bring to our relationship, that would be as I am to him. I would be generous and loving and kind, etc. And I want this relationship to be exclusive, okay? No sharing allowed. It's just you and me, right? And I would like for this relationship to last, ideally, till the end of our lives, right? Now, in a job, we know nowadays that's not going to happen. The job, unfortunately, is I'm going to love you and need you and pay you for as long as I need to. But at such point when I don't need you anymore, I am going to drop you. Or you may drop me. Like, for example, I live in Georgia, which is an at-will state. I can literally quit on my employer. I can walk in and say, I quit, turn around, gather myself, walk out the door. Fine. But in Georgia, he can just as well say to me, sorry, Al, you've been laid off. Here's your paperwork. Could you please exit the building? Leave your stuff. That's mine as far as work product, that sort of thing. But, laptop, phone, etc. if they issued me a phone. But most cases they didn't. But here, have a nice day and go. So in a very real sense, it happens to us on both sides, right? What we thought would be forever, and trust me, I have known people, I've been that person in my early life where my job was everything. I wanted to work so hard to impress those people that I worked for, and yet, yeah, it worked, but it worked to the detriment of my relationship with my wife and my children, or you can have people that really don't, I mean, they will devote the minimal amount of effort in their work life, but then you get them talking about their off-work passions. I don't care if it's rock climbing, whatever you do in your off time. You get them talking about that. Oh, Katie barred the door. You just need to be like, another drink, another round, and just be prepared to listen. They're going to go on forever and on and on, and that's okay. Especially if they're your friends. I mean, that's what friends are for. But the whole point is that we don't have a balanced relationship either with our jobs or our relationships anymore. And unfortunately, and in the worst analogies, both suffer. And we'll talk about the reasons why that happens. So, like when you're going to try to get on a show like Love is Blind, right? You have a resume, and the way that the show works is that they have third-party feelers that kind of look out for people, or sometimes people are referred to them, and basically then they go and they find these people. They go through a vetting process. Well, for us, in the civilian world, our resumes are our calling cards. This is what we put out into the ether. This is what we put out there to say, hey, I'm looking for work, and if you're interested, here's the skill base that I have, and these are the jobs that I've done, and, I'm more than happy to take your call, so please call me, and my phone number is there, and this is mine, obviously. So one of the things I like to highlight is that I'm in Metro Atlanta, my mobile phone, obviously, my email address, and also my LinkedIn. So you can, and the reason why they're highlighted in blue is because if you were to get a copy of my resume, if you click on that, it will automatically go to the internet, or in this case, to my email address. So again, what I'm trying to emphasize, I'm a skilled business professional. I have my PMP certification, which is a professional certification that I have within my career field that is quite valuable to me. I'm skilled in dealing with issues of business leadership and solution, and most of all, I am a United States Air Force Academy graduate. Now, I've said this enough, but for people that don't know me, I want them to know. And again, for those people who don't know what the Air Force Academy is, if you know West Point, you know Annapolis, that's the Air Force equivalent to that. Okay, so having said that, what's the next step? Well, like the show, we want to be produced. And what I mean by that is that we want an advocate. Now, in this case, this is a reporter interviewing someone, probably live on TV, but there's a person behind them as a producer that's making sure that the camera angles are right, that the appropriate questions get asked, that the piece is going to be what they call production worthy. Well, in a very real sense, we want to be produced as well. We want to find an advocate that will go and read our resume. And resumes are, if you heard that old expression, you got 30 seconds on a good resume, where a person's going to scan through. And now mine is rather long, I know, but my whole point is I'm a skilled professional. I'm not straight out of college, with all due respect to recent college grads. My point is this. You're going to go through it, and it's going to say, this guy's done a lot. That's why I put that summary right up in the first page, so you can see how valuable all my work experience would be for a potential recruiter. But I want to be produced. I want an advocate. So what is our real version of the pods nowadays? Well, it's really simply this. Now, I lived in England for 3 years, and yes, their phone booths actually looked like this. They were really quite becoming structures. I wish that, we got rid of public phone booths in the United States because everybody's got a cell phone. So that business kind of faded away. But believe it or not, they still have these in Britain. So the whole point is that the civilian version that we face in the pods is really the phone screen. Now, some companies will do video screens, right? Because they want to see you, and of course you want to see them, which is great. But in a lot of instances, the first initial contact is not going to be a video call, because companies do not want to feel adverse that they hired someone based on someone's looks. Now, truth be told, okay, good-looking people get hired faster than people that are not so good-looking. Okay? Terrible fact. There are studies been done on it. just like men who are tall. I mean, I'm 6 feet, so I would, I fit that criteria that someone would have if they wanted to get married again, that their guy has to be over 6 feet. I'm 6 foot, okay? I've been lucky in that department. However, I have known a very good friend of mine, I won't use his name, who has not been so gifted. This guy is a CPA, he's an attorney, he's a great guy, but he's 5'8". So the problem was his father was a short guy, his mom was kind of tiny. Genetics had something to play in that. But this is our version of the real pods. So we're going in there, and what we're trying to do in a phone screen of 30 minutes or whatever is like what they're trying to do in the pods, except they have a more extended period of time. Is first, let's get to know you. Tell me, it's always tell me a little bit about yourself. And for my case, I've always got to keep it under a minute. I've timed myself literally to make sure I don't go over time, but I hit all my pertinent points, and then keep my questions short and sweet. I love this longer format in making videos, but the whole point is you got to be short, you got to be direct, but you've got to be warm and full of warmth. Convey a sense that you can tell a joke, that you can make them feel them at ease. Because if you make them feel at ease, they're going to say, well, this guy is going to be really good to work with. And that's our real version of the pods. So as we get going, now on Love is Blind, they have what is known as a reveal. And what happens is that when the two people have connected, made a light connection, and the man has proposed to the woman, or the other way around. I've seen them both go both ways. But the whole point is they have this reveal, right? The man is on one side of these two opaque pieces of glass. The woman is on the same thing on her side. The glass slides open, and then reality sinks in. And there is Mr. Right and Miss Right, and they come together, they embrace, they sometimes, I know the Latins kiss very passionately. The U.S. folks are a little bit reserved, but the Latins, man, wow. I mean, it's like, okay, but that's their culture, and that's great. So the whole point is that now they've had a reveal, they've seen each other's faces, and now they're ready to go to the next step, which is really the interview phase. And what are we trying to get done in the interview? Okay, we're again in the face-to-face interview, we're trying to replicate, but really also multiply what we had in the pods. So we have our best clothes on, we have our, we're just to the nines. We're trying to convey the best possible impression to the people that are on the. Now, sometimes the questions can be repeated, but the whole point is at the end of that, now that you've had a chance to meet me, we have spoken in the ears, now you meet me face to face, can we now make this a work connection going forward, just like a love connection? God rest Chuck Woolery. I used to always love that show. But the same thing is just, can we make this thing work for the benefit of both of us? So as you can see here in both those pictures, right, it's the end of the interview. Both candidates feel it's gone exceedingly well. I mean, they got grins as big as a Super Bowl, and they're thinking, yes, we are going to move forward. I can see a future with this company. Well, then something else happens. And unfortunately, it's this. I found this photo on the internet, and I was really moved by it because I think that what happens is, now I always made it a point after every interview, that especially face-to-face, and companies typically use a 2-interview, 3-interview, a board arrangement, whatever. But the whole point is, at the end of the interview, especially the face-to-face interview, I would always ask this question as my last question to them. First of all, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to meet with me. I'm very excited about this opportunity. However, I need to ask this final question. Is there anything else that you would like to ask of me that either would give you pause for concern, either on my resume or in our interaction, that you feel we would need to address right now, and let's dispel that so then going forward, both of us can be positive about our efforts today. Is there anything further you would like to ask me as the candidate? Now, the reason why I ask that question is that not to put them on the spot, but yeah, I want to put them on the spot. I don't want it coming back, well, he didn't answer this or whatever. As much as I'm trying to make them commit to me, I want to have the assurance that I've answered all of their questions, that there's nothing outstanding, that we are fully prepared to move forward. That's the final question I always ask. And then they'll say, no, I think that, Jane, do you have any questions? Bob, do you have any questions? No, Al, thank you very much. And, and then I would ask about the next steps. Well, we're still reviewing people, but I would say that if you've not heard from us, let's say today is Monday, let's just give it a week. Great. So just so that I'm clear, let's make plans that if I have not heard from you before then, I will give you a call sometime Monday afternoon, because we know Mondays are all hectic and that sort of thing. Neither of us needs that pressure. But let me plan on, let's say, calling you sometime around 2 o'clock next Monday to either confirm the next steps or where do we go from here. Does that sound good to everyone? And everyone nods their head up and down. Oh, sure, yeah, that's very good. It shows me that I'm organized. I'm trying to give them a deadline without giving them a deadline, but yet they've committed to a deadline. Very subtle, but I've had enough sales training. That's what I want. I want them to commit to a time and a place where the next step is going to take place. Fair enough. Okay. All through that week, nothing. Not a problem. We said Monday. Great. Weekend comes and goes. It's Monday morning. Still nothing. So now my radar is up, and I'm going to be looking at my watch. 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I'll typically give them like 2:15-ish. Because, things happen on Mondays. Things get crazy. So I figure 2:15 is good enough. Now, people would say, if you tell them 2 o'clock, you should call them 2 o'clock. Yeah, but I've had experiences where I've been burned, where I would go and call someone, they were a little bit irate, and say, well, Bob, we agreed it's 2 o'clock. It's now 2 o'clock. Yeah, but something came up. I understand. So I'm going to cut them a little slack just out of respect, but no later than 15 minutes. So if we said 2 o'clock, no later than 2:15. At 2:15, I'm calling. It goes straight to voicemail. Okay? I'm going to wait an hour. Now it's 3:15. Call, still straight to voicemail. Stop. Obviously, they're not ready. And part of what's happening to this young lady is what's happening to me. Part of me is starting to spiritually disintegrate, because I'm thinking, now what? Did they not take me seriously? Were they just blowing smoke, somewhere on my anatomy, and where? I mean, what is really happening here? And unfortunately, what is happening is that we are going, and now we've encountered this. We are ghosted. Okay? They didn't return our calls. And oh, by the way, at the end of the day, so I called them at 2:15, didn't hear anything. At the end of the day, I'm sending an email saying, just to remind them that we did have this time set up, but we understand things might have come at work. But I'm just sending them a gentle reminder, and I will be calling them. Now, I will be calling at 2 o'clock the following day. And that's when I'm calling, right at 2 o'clock. I'm looking at my clock on my computer, because everyone's on that same clock, and at 2 o'clock, I'm calling. Then, if it goes straight to voicemail, once again, I'm now going to start be feeling what this person feels like, that they've been ghosted. And then at that point, so how does this now all play out going forward? Well, there's a saying that a rut is a grave with the two ends knocked out of it. And having been as a job seeker many times in my professional life, I can agree to that. I can agree to that with a great deal of personal experience and empathy. That just like this young lady is sitting in this hole, right? And that hole is really trying to find their next opportunity, hoping at some point she's going to, hit that node of gold that will be the reward for all of her hard work. But there's also saying sometimes when you get to a point that you need to stop digging. And the problem is a rut is that feeling that you have poured in all of this time and this energy and emotional and everything. I mean, of all of the assets that we will ever have in our life, the most perishable yet the most valuable is time. We will never get time back. And the worst thing that we can feel either in a personal relationship or in a work relationship or trying to find our next work relationship is that we have wasted our time. Now, if you're just investing in one company and one company alone, there is a thing that there is strength in numbers, right? If you're just focused on getting one job with one company and it's not going to work, then you have wasted your time because you could have used other parts of your day in trying to pursue other leads that could have gotten you that work. Okay, so you have to approach everything with a sense of balance, but also with a sense of numbers, right? There's that old saying, you have a better probability of casting 10 lines in the river as opposed to one. Now, you may catch that one fish, you may catch it on your first cast. Well, lucky you. But the probability is that it probably is not going to happen. But if you have 10 lines, so if you have 10 different opportunities you're trying to pursue, the problem is now we have people trying to pursue hundreds of opportunities. I mean, we hear, and trust me, as I said before, I've been on LinkedIn over 2,500 times trying to find a job. That is 2,500 fishing lines I've cast for a job, hoping that one of them will hit. And rarely has that happened. It has occasionally, but few and far between. And we are finding that is getting to be worse and worse going forward. The other thing that is a real live circumstance that we want to be mindful of is really the seriousness of depression. Okay? Depression, and I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a medical professional, but I have suffered from signs of situational depression. And the worst were always when I was unemployed. Because as a man, as a husband, as a father, it is my job to provide for my family. I've never abdicated that responsibility at any time in my life. That was God's role chosen for me from birth, to be a man and to be able to provide for his wife and his family. However, when you get to that point where, and understand, it's no fault of my own. I've been downsized a number of different times. Never had a choice in it, but it's happened. I deal with it. But when you're in the act of trying to find your next, because trust me, once you find your next job, all of those bad feelings, they're so far in the rearview mirror, you don't even think about it anymore. It's like, yeah, I was unemployed, but now I got a new gig. All is great in the world. Thank you, God. Let me pray my rosary tonight for those of you who need a job, and I do every night, folks, as a matter of record. My whole point is, though, depression is real. And if you feel like you're suffering from it, ask your friends, do I feel to the point where I'm really overly depressed to you? And trust me, if the vast majority of them are saying yes, you need to get some sort of medical attention. Depression is a real thing. And if you leave depression being untreated for a certain amount of time, it will affect you in a negative standpoint. So you end deeper and deeper going into that rut. So I put that out there in terms of that. So now, where do we go next? Well, I like to say is that do not nag yourself with a sense of failure. Holding yourself accountable for what you do is a great thing. But the fact of the matter is that we can nag ourselves to death. And I'm exhibit A for that. There's no amount of pressure that you can put on me that I haven't felt myself. I'll give you a real life example. When we got out of the military, my wife and I finally decided it was time to start our family. We had been married for close to 6 years, and we were both 24-ish. She had just turned 24. I was getting to turn 24 when we got married. So 6 years was at 30. I get out of the Air Force. I get enrolled in MBA school because she felt this is something I needed to do. Something I needed to do. So very happy about that. Well, we had gone out and had a great last summer dinner full of Chianti, and needless to say, and long story short, I found out that we were pregnant with our first child the day I started grad school. My very first class with a marketing professor by the first name of Lou. He was a great instructor, loved the man to death. He was a former Army officer, so he appreciated the military pedigree. So we are going around the class, and his question was really quite engaging for an icebreaker. He said, I'd like for you to tell the class something about you that we would never be able to guess. He says, no, I don't want anything really scary here. Okay, let's keep it within bounds. So it comes to me. I get up. I said, sir, my name is Albert Fellew. I'm very happy to be here. I am former military. As luck would have it, there was a graduate of the Naval Academy in that very same class. His name was Scott, who graduated the same year I graduated from Air Force. And we were sitting next to each other. But I said, sir, with all due respect, there's no amount of pressure that you can put on me that I'm not putting on myself right now. And he kind of said, oh, really? And why is that? And I said, sir, I just found out my wife is pregnant. Well, he got this hellacious grin. I got some claps from my female in the cohort. Some of the guys were like, you're going to be a dad. And I'm like, yeah, I just found out. Well, it was a great icebreaker. And my daughter was actually born in finals week, the spring semester of the following year. Long story short, okay, if you nag yourself with a sense of failure, it is going to come back to bite you. You can hold yourself accountable and do so, but what the expectation is that, but I'm going to turn things around. And that was very much what happened in my case. So going forward now, we're looking that failure is never a reason not to try again. Now, this is very true that, there's that old saying, the only failure is not, getting back up when you get thrown off a horse. Well, if you broke your leg when you got thrown off a horse, it's kind of hard to get back up again. But the whole point is that, I heard a beautiful saying from a Catholic priest that said the reason why Christ fell down but then got up after each time is for your kids to be able to fall down for the fourth time and get up, and then get up again and again and again. So the whole point is that if you get down and stay down, you're going to be out for the count. Now, I'd like to transition to something that some of you may find a bit of a stretch, but just bear with me, because I wouldn't have gone this route if I didn't feel it meant something. This is a picture of the island of Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima is a small island atoll in the South Pacific that American military planners found would be absolutely crucial for the Americans to throw out the Japanese and thus seize the island. And as you can see, there are two what looks like makeshift runways that the Japanese had actually constructed. If you look on the bottom right-hand corner, right here, is a place called, or a mountain called Mount Suribachi. Mount Suribachi is the highest point on Iwo. Now, for those of you who are familiar with military planning, for an infantry unit, of any unit, you must always control the high ground. If you do not control the high ground, you subject your troops to possible slaughter over time because the enemy can go and pick your people off one by one. And clearly, Mount Suribachi had to go and to be conquered by the Americans if they were going to move forward in their quest to ultimately defeat the Japanese. This is a picture of Iwo at the ground level when the Marines were going and invading. As you can see, that's not dirt as we understand dirt as we would find, let's say, in North America. That is actually sand and ash that has been thrown out of the mountain over centuries of time. It is gritty, it is deep, it is mucky, it is difficult to maneuver within, especially when you have a 60-pound pack on your back trying to climb a steep ridge like what they would found. This is what the American Marines found themselves in, and there were literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Marines that were either killed or injured on Iwo in order to overtake that mountain. And it was the beginning, I believe, of 1944. But thank God something happened, and it turned the tide of both the American spirit at home, because the Americans were getting extremely war-worthy about the progress of the war. Now, again, this is January, so this is before D-Day. D-Day takes place on June 6th of 1944. This is somewhere January, February. And then here is what happens. 6 Marines climbed and reached the summit of Mount Suribachi in order to place the American flag on top of that mountain, and thus giving encouragement to their fellows below that were still fighting to clean the mountain off of Japanese resistance. It's hard to believe, but there are 6 men there. And this picture was taken by a news reporter or a news photographer, and this could be argued as the one picture that saved the war morale effort in the United States. Because once those 6 Marines had planted, and I'll show you some clips of the actual planning, once this was wired back to the home front in the United States and eventually around the world, it really turned the war effort around. And it really came to give people solace to know that we're going to win this thing. By God, we are going to win this thing. And indeed, they did. So let me go and show you this instead. Now, for those of you, obviously, they did not have color photography when they took that movie. It was actually done in black and white, and obviously it was colorized much years later. There was no band playing the national anthem as the Marines were raising the flag on Mount Suribachi. But I found this colorized pic of the same thing with the planting. And indeed, again, as a patriot, again, as a former service member, how can I just, number one, share a great deal of both pride and also sadness, because pride in the sense that these Marines symbolized what 1,000 Marines were doing, in that battle on that day. But also knowing that to raise that flag on Mount Suribachi came with a great, great physical toll. Many Marines died that day, and in the subsequent action leading to the surrender of the Japanese to end the war in the Pacific. But having said that, of course, Hollywood, never for one to miss a great plot line, went and made a picture about that activity, about that day. It was called The Sands of Iwo Jima, and, just give it a watch.
There she goes.
Now, first of all, here is, if you ever want to win a bar game about John Wayne, the question is, does John Wayne ever die in any of his movies? Well, the answer is actually yes. Because in that shot where you go and you see that Marine with Jay Stryker on there, John Stryker was actually portrayed by John Wayne. John Wayne plays this grizzled sergeant that is going to whip his troops into shape, and that cohort was the remainder of his platoon that was assigned to attack Iwo Jima. And as a result of that, the leader himself pays the ultimate price. To the Marines that I have known in my personal life, all I can say is Semper Fi, which is short for Semper Fidelis, which means always faithful. And starting with the Vice President of the United States, there's never such a thing as a former Marine. Once a Marine, you are always a Marine. Regardless, you take that title to you with your death. And there was a very famous newscaster in Atlanta who went, his first name was Kim. Yes, he was a man, but he was a Marine. And he said that when you go to heaven, it's not St. Peter that's guarding the gates. It's United States Marines. because they have already done their time in hell here on earth. And yeah, I got a little bit spritzy. But thank God for the United States Marines, and thank God for my fellow servicemen and women around the world, both living and dead. So now let's address the topic of failure once again. Okay, and I kind of really like this quote: never underestimate the power you have in your life to take in a new direction. And you do. Every single one of us, as long as we have a breath in our body, if we don't have a desire to change, to do something different, if we, that expression, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and getting a different result as a result of that activity. Yes, that's truly insane. But if you wake up one morning and say, I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I'm going to do something different, anything different, you're not a failure in life. You've just chosen a new tact. And the reason why I want to discuss the topic of failure is simply this. I want to show you this clip, and then I'll comment further.
Okay, people, listen up. Just a little time. I want you all to forget the flight plan. From this moment on, we are improvising a new mission. We're sorry. We'll get somebody to look at that. How do we get our people home? They are here. You turn around, speak back, direct abort.
No, we get them on a free return trajectory. It's the option with the fewest question marks from safety.
I agree with Jerry. Use the moon's gravity, slingshot them around.
No, the LEM will not support 3 guys for that amount of time. I mean, we've got to do a direct abort. We do an about face, we bring the guys right home right now.
Get them back soon, absolutely.
We don't even know if the Odyssey's engines even work, and there's been serious damage to this spacecraft.
They blow up and they die.
That is not what we're talking about tonight, not whether or not these guys...
Let's hold it down. Let's hold it down, people. The only engine we've got with enough power for direct abort is the SPS on a service module. What Lovell has told us it could have been damaged in an explosion, so let's consider that engine dead. We light that thing up, could blow the whole works. Just too risky. We're not going to take that chance. In fact, the only thing the command module is good for is re-entry, so that leaves us with the LEM, which means free return trajectory. Once we get the guys around the moon, we'll fire up the LEM engine, make a long burn, pick up some speed, and get them home as quick as we can.
Gene, I'm wondering what the Gremlin guys think about this.
We can't make any guarantees. We designed the LEM to land on the moon, not fire the engine out there for course correction.
Well, unfortunately, we're not landing on the moon, are we? I don't care what anything was designed to do. I care about what it can do. So let's get to work. Let's lay it out, okay?
First of all, I want to thank the makers of Apollo 13. I went and saw that movie back in 1995, and very soon after that, it was my privilege to meet Gene Kranz in person. He was the character that was played by Ed Harris, and he gets this question asked all the time. I'm sure he's answered it 1,000 times, but Gene was very gracious. When I met him, he wore that high and tight haircut. I mean, he was the man. So, like everyone else, I asked Gene, and I'm sure he developed this pat answer, but he just kind of smiled. And I said, yeah, I said it, but Ed Harris did it better than I did. And, it was a tribute to Harris. I think the last Ed Harris movie I saw was in the Top Gun Maverick. He plays a 2-star admiral. He's very wrinkled now. He was actually a much younger actor when he played that, but the whole point is that the sentiment is there, is that when you are doing some things in your life, failure is simply not an option. Now, let's qualify this. Are you going to face situational failures? Yes, you are. You're going to come across certain things that, for whatever reason, could not get done. Get it, done it, got the T-shirt for it. But if your ultimate goal is to secure a new line of employment, you are going to face a lot of smaller failures to get to that ultimate objective. Just as I'm sure the Marines had small failures. I mean, obviously the loss of a single Marine is devastating. Well, you know what? The loss of your job, the loss of your livelihood, that's devastating to you. That's personal. And yet, somehow you have to find it in your spirit to get back in the game. And sometimes getting back in the game, I think of like athletes that struggle knowing that their career is ended. Kelsey Travis is kind of going through that right now in his own career. He made an apology to the fans. He took accountability. He said he wasn't the best leader out there. And I think going in the back now, his brother, who used to play for the Eagles, has already retired. So his career is over and done with. They have a very successful podcast going between the two. And at some point, I would anticipate that sometime before the draft, he may announce one of two things. Either he's going to try to come back for one last season to make up for it, which is honorable and admirable, but he may have to go and make a bigger decision to say, I'm done. Someone else needs to have that leadership position. So having said all that, I want to talk to you about this. And this is the picture of the universe from Hubble. If you look at the lower portion of it, you can almost see almost like a lion's head within all of those stars and all of that. And, well, how do I relate to the universe? Well, let me tell you this as a person of faith. The entire universe, as big as it is, would be incomplete without you. Let me say that again. The entire universe, as big as it would be incomplete without you right now. Now, at some point, will we all pass away? Yes, we will. God willing, we will be with God for all of eternity. But from this time, from the time that we were conceived to the moment we breathe our last on this earth, the universe is at one with us. Now, I'm not being freaky-deaky, but there was a beautiful song in the 60s, and one of the lyrics was, "You are a part of the universe. You are no less than the dreams and the skies. You have a right to be here." And in a very real sense, every single one of us can make that claim, and we should. But going forward, I would like you to do something different in your life. And that is simply this. You must be comfortable making your nest, your home, on a cliff going forward. This is a picture of an American eagle. The mother is protecting her chicks, but yet, as you can see, her nest is totally exposed. Eagles do not build nests at the base of trees. Eagles build nests on the very tops of trees, where in a sufficient windstorm will cause that tree to sway back and forth. And yet this mother is fully prepared to protect her chicks in that nest. You must be equally equipped to do the same. You cannot run away from the turbulence of this world. It is physically, mentally, and spiritually impossible to do that. But what you can do is to go into an attitude of being, I need to be prepared for this, I am prepared for this, and I'm going to do whatever it takes that's lawful, legal, and proper to not only take care of myself, but to take care of my loved ones, my family, my friends, my extended community. Once you go into the world with that mindset, you are less susceptible to depression, to negative thinking, and an attitude of I cannot do this. I just started webcasting 2 weeks ago today. I've seen other people do it. I've seen other people do it well. I'm on a learning curve, but I enjoy what I'm doing right now, and it takes work. This does not come easy. I have to think of the topic, then research the topic, then put together the AV portions of it to make my point so it will be relevant for you. All you have to do is watch. You give a thumbs up, you give a thumbs down, I'm okay either way. But at the end of this broadcast, I will have done something that I have wanted to do for a long time, and that is to make my voice heard. And you, by God's grace, the internet, karma, call it whatever you heck you want, somehow we have made a connection and it's resonated with you because you want to listen and learn more. So finally, I want to talk about a great president of the United States, a man who faced a certain level of adversity in his own life, and he was, I believe, the 21st president of the United States, that is Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt had a beautiful saying in a speech. It is called the man in the arena. I don't want you to read this. I'm actually going to let you hear it. But the image of the man of the arena is similar to like what a gladiator faced in Rome. He had very little protection, and unfortunately he had to win in order to live. But at the end of the day, no one could do that for him. Either that man had to stand up and fight, or he would die. Well, in a very real sense, we are all in that arena. We are all fighting for what we believe is our best interests, the best idea. And we're going to take some heat. We're going to go and get to that point where we are utterly exhausted. But I think the last portion of this is really what's telling, is that if he fails, at least failing while doing greatly or daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those who are cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. See, there are a lot of people on the sidelines that will be more than happy to offer commentary about you. They can be your relatives, they can be your friends, they can be co-workers, etc. You will never have a shortage of people that will willingly criticize you or make comments about you or your life. But they're not in the arena. They're in the cheap seats. They're in the grandstands. These are the people that are not doing what you do. So I'd like you to hear now the audio of this, and it's extremely powerful, and I believe it will wrap up very soon after that. So now, let's hear it.
The poorest way to face life is to face it with a sneer. There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride and cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief toward all that is great and lofty. Whether an achievement or in that noble effort which, even if it fails, comes to second achievement. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles. or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who was actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the person that made that, because I believe that each and every one of us, if we were to listen to that, people talk about their vision board and saying their affirmations, and that's fine. If that's what takes you to get motivated, God bless you. But I know that for me, and I want to look directly into the camera to each and every one of you that are going to listen to this podcast. I know that for myself, and what I can do is I can take that and I can put that on my phone so that I can listen to it every single morning. But my whole point is this. If for however long it takes for me to find this next job, like I said, I have been out for 777 days. I know what you are feeling right now. You feel that you're at the end of your finances, at the end of your sanity sometimes. You're at the end of the rope with your relationship with your spouse, your kids, because they hate, believe it or not, your kids hate seeing mommy or daddy with this hound dog face all the time. And as much as we try to hide it from our kids, first of all, we shouldn't. We should be honest with our kids. But as I said before, so what I want to do in these videos is I want to feed you and give you hope. The same thing we want to do with our kids. We want to feed them. Yes, mommy and daddy is not feeling good about themselves, but this isn't going to determine us, because once mommy and daddy get back on their feet, things are just going to move on as they always have. But never, ever doubt that mommy and daddy do not love you to death. And then we find our kids and we hug and we squeeze them until they physically tell us to stop. And then we hold on for a couple more seconds and then we can let them go. But I truly believe that children are far more resilient than we give them credit for, and that they too want to see mommy and daddy smile once again. So now let's go and take it all back. So what really is the final motivation for Love is Blind? Well, believe it or not, there are some couples that have found their person. Not everyone makes it to the altar, says yes. And sometimes it's pretty tragic because I get caught up in these people. And it's like, oh, really? I mean, the ones sometimes you think that aren't going to make it, but then say yes, they're willing to. Wow. Congratulations. And yet, in season 7 in Washington, D.C., Miss Taylor found her person. And you know what? She's still with her guy. And you know what? It is insane. Let me just take this time. Forget. I'll do it in the comments. But you know what? I was rooting for them every single step of the way. They knew in their first date that they had something special. And as their relationship progressed, and they had some bumps, it was not easy sliding. I remember one time where she did not want to reveal her name, her mother's name, because that would reveal possibly her ethnicity that might change her husband or her future husband, Garrett. So she was kind of steadfast on that, but he was cool with it. He said, no, that's fine. But come to find out, her mother's name was Fang, I believe. Fang or Fong. And her father's name was Thomas. And he's a great guy. But the way that she described her mother, and Taylor, you said it first. I'm just repeating what you said. You said that your mom was both a saint and a gangster. My question to you is, when are you going to make her a grandmother and a grandfather? On behalf of all your fans, we understand you're living a beautiful life. But you did promise. I'm just asking on behalf of them and all of your fans. But truly, we wish you nothing more than continued happiness. And you're an inspiration. So keep being that inspiration of love. So, what's the objective of Love is Blind? A happy marriage. Well, what's the objective for us finding a new job? A sense of victory. A sense that now we are now around new people, new company, new circumstances, but we are now able to contribute once again, and most importantly, be happy. So, having said all that, I know this ran a little bit longer than I usually go, but thank you for staying with me the whole time. I want to thank the Love is Blind people again. These are your credits. These are your images. I own nothing on this. I'm purely borrowing them to be able to make a point. And for all those other people who have used those images, I claim no ownership for them. I give credit where credit is due. The only thing that I'm trying to do is give some sort of commentary that makes sense, is positive, and ultimately, because I'm in that fight with you, and trust me, the day that I get my next opportunity, I'm going to be setting off fireworks on YouTube, and you're going to be the first to know about it. So once again, thank you. Happy Sunday. For those of you who have President's Day off tomorrow as an additional day off, enjoy. And for all people who are married or in relationships or whatever, once again, happy Valentine's Day weekend. And may you truly find the love of your life forever and ever. Amen.